Will the coronavirus budget make the UK economy sick?
Hello and welcome to a special Mark and Pete show. Yes, well, Rishi Sunak has delivered his first budget and has pumped billions of pounds into the economy to combat coronavirus. Well, this has led people to think that actually he's probably done the wrong thing. And we're going to talk about that. Many people are thinking it's actually a good thing that he's spending money to solve a problem. But it comes off the back of the fact that the Bank of England has announced an emergency cut in interest rates, essentially to shore up the economy amid the coronavirus outbreak. Now, policymakers have reduced the rates from 0.75% to 0.25%. Taking borrowing costs back down to the lowest level in history, folks. Yes. Well, from a business perspective and also from an investment perspective, here's businessman's Mark's cutting comment. By cutting back on the UK interest rate, an edge may appear on the business front, but it's a sharp reminder of the financial fate as savers' return is chopped, to be perfectly blunt. So, Clergyman Pete, I must ask you, now that the sounds of Mr. Rishi Sunak resonate throughout the economy and throughout the United Kingdom and throughout the globe, has he done the right thing in pouring billions back into the economy and borrowing money?
Well, he's been lauded for it, it seems. I was just reading commentary on it, Businessman Mark, and what I see is it being very well received by people in the centre of politics, by people to a certain extent on the left, apart from those, in making partisan politics points. Nice bit of alliteration there. But I personally was very disappointed in this budget. In a way, it was ameliorated by the fact that I expected him to do something like this. But I was disappointed in that I thought for a Conservative government, what we could expect is some sensible handling of the finances. I see just a splurge of spending. And what I see is money being pumped into things like British exports, global as he says, as the Chancellor says, to help industries seize the global opportunities post-Brexit. I certainly think there are going to be great opportunities, and there's investment into research and development, and there's various good things. There was an attempt to sort out when you got paid. That's part of the coronavirus package. To deal with that, there was an attempt to put to change when you got your sick pay to being the first day off rather than having to wait. That's been things in there, but overall I was disappointed with the overall approach, which goes against the Mark and Pete approach, which is to look to the long term instead of having a short term stimulus. Yes. I think the best long term stimulus, I think this is basically the Mark and Pete view, correct me if I'm wrong, is that we don't think that pumping money into the economy is the best thing to do. The best thing to do is to cut regulation, to cut taxes, and allow the economy to thrive naturally. So that's what I would have preferred to see.
Yes, let's explain our position here, because it's a double whammy as far as I'm concerned, as far as savers thinking from their perspective what this means. Let me explain. The coronavirus issue is clearly a terrible situation. And I don't have a problem with the fact that the chancellor has actually taken measures to help. That is a good thing. But in the fact that that is a short-term measure, what he has done is that he has poured billions into it at a time when the country is trying to reduce debt, still has no complete deal yet with the EU, so we're in a fragile situation. But where, to me, it's the double whammy is the fact that did the Bank of England need to cut the interest rates by so much? Now, to cut from 0.75 down to 0.25, taking it down to the lowest level in history, is really a kick in the teeth as far as savers are concerned. Now, what it also does is, and this is the long-term issue that I see, by taking this measure, And I do have, and I've mentioned on previous Mark and Pete shows, that I've never really understood what Mark Carney ever did. But this is one of his legacies that I would say is, yes, folks, he has set up, as a result of doing this, the temptation for people to borrow more. And this is going to put them into further debt. And I do understand that the Chancellor will take advantage of that. He has done. But at the same time, unfortunately, I think that other businesses will latch onto this as well. Now, it's meant to be short term. We don't know when they're going to raise the interest rates again. But my worry is that whether it's in the next few months or not, it still sets the wrong precedent. What I think is, and there's an obvious disconnect between what the Bank of England are doing and what the Chancellor's doing. Some of this, I think, is a little bit on the hoof, should we say. Yeah. And I don't believe that Rishi Sunak was actually planning to do this a month ago.
No.
And I think that what he has done is his hand has been forced because of the situation. And in some cases, these things have to be tackled.
Yep.
But my worry is that when you look at the bigger picture, the context of what the UK is going through, we didn't need the double whammy. And I think the businesses could have managed, if we did need to take a cut on the interest rate, certainly taking it by 0.5%, which has been unprecedented for quite some time. And I think that what we're going to see is that we're just putting ourselves in a more vulnerable position. So from a business point of view, it might seem on the surface like a good idea, and it will help some companies, certainly the small to medium-sized companies, but I don't think it's going to help in the long term. And the issue here is that when he does raise it, is he actually going to put it back? Is he going to put it back to a 0.5% increase, back to the 0.75?
Yeah.
I have a worry that that's not going to happen. I would also add one other thing, just to conclude my little rant, and that is that I'm worried that and this shows the problem where I think that we've had austerity measures for far too long. Why didn't Mark Carney 3 years ago, when the UK economy had recovered, debts were being reduced, as the Conservative governments themselves have said, why didn't he put up incrementally the interest rate, say, by 0.25 every half year? What it would have meant then is that savers would have gained more on their cash and their return, and it would have encouraged people to have more from that cash, i.e. more money to spend into the economy. He hasn't done that. No. And so I have to ask the question is, what did he do? And when he's just about to hand over to his successor, he goes and takes a measure like this. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Go back to Canada.
Yes, I think that is a mistake. But I just want to go back, Mark, just in closing. I think the coronavirus crisis, I guess, health crisis, that faced the Chancellor meant that he did have to spend some money, and
absolutely.
And in fact, it was £12 billion altogether that he spent extra because of tackling the coronavirus outbreak. So, okay, that's fair enough. And he announced changes in benefits and sick pay rules, which I said earlier in the show, and also a stimulus package for pubs and music venues because. You know, obviously, people meeting together is going to be affected by the coronavirus.
Absolutely,
so he did some. So I'm just saying that our view is that was good, but the overall approach was bad. So just think, if he hadn't been on a huge spending spree, he could more easily have afforded the extra 12 billion without just going in for more and more borrowing. I think it's overall that's a big mistake to spending money you don't have, basically. I think.
Well, indeed, and in fact, absolutely. So, you know, for something, when you think of fiscal acumen, is something that, again, that we look to the great leaders. Yeah. Clearly, the Chancellor and obviously the Prime Minister obviously are aligned, and I agree with your position there. But where I have the issue of the double whammy is when Mark Carney announced the interest rate cuts. So in conclusion, this is my thought, based upon what we've just discussed. And do we owe Mr. Carney a debt of gratitude? The wizards of the magic money tree have waved their fiscal wand. If you're spellbound by the budgetary glee, then you've just been conned.
A Conservative con.
Thank you for joining this special edition of Mark and Pete Show. Join us next time for more updates very soon.